Change the place, change the name. Islamic Jihad is always the same. And here he is, ladies and gentlemen, the man who should, the man who could. Yes, that man is David Wood. And here we are this week. In Jihad is back, and we are better than ever, with more Jihad and better Jihad. Welcome, David. Do you have an echo today?
I don't know yet. We don't know because, well, fortunately, we have the best problem solver of all time on running things. But so jihadis spend their weeks slaughtering unbelievers in the name of Allah and plotting to do so. And Robert spends his week coming up with rhymes.
Yes, that's right. It took me all week to get that, and next week there'll be another. I think one a week I can probably manage.
Robert sits there. Robert's in there in his room with a notepad.
A lot of jihad, ladies and gentlemen, so let's get right to it. David, I have learned a new skill. I think. I'm not entirely sure I have learned this skill. And ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who are just joining us, let me explain that this is about the fifth or sixth time I have hosted a show in my entire natural life. I do not know the technical aspects very well. I have not known until earlier today how to put up visual aids. If I put something up, David, are you going to be able to see it?
I don't know if I'll see it on the interface we're using, but I will look as well on the regular live stream on YouTube.
Any interface will do, ladies and gentlemen.
But it's good to put it up because then we'll know if I can see them here too or if I need to see them elsewhere.
Well, I thought it was interesting in terms of clever segues, David, that you said the jihadis spend their time devising new ways to slaughter, new ways to kill. And also they spend their time on bad photoshops. So let's see if we can do this. Here's the first one. There it is. Ladies and gentlemen, can you see it?
I don't, but there will be there's like a 15 to 20 second delay from what other people are actually seeing. So okay. I will let you know now. I'm watching, I'm observing.
Yes, what we have is a Photoshop of Geert Wilders, the Dutch politician, and me being beheaded with the blood flowing. And that's one death threat I've gotten recently. Then we have
it's on the screen.
Spencer should not spread hate. Oh, I'm sorry. Geert Wilders and Spencer should not spread hate against Islam. Otherwise, they will pay for it. Allah is our witness. These kind of persons has a horrible end, but not horrible grammar. Then we have enemies of Muhammad have disturbed world peace. They must be vanished. 3 knives. Then we have... Oh, this is my favorite, David. So, this is the one I was telling you about last week. And you can see there, failed Robert Spencer's The Devil. And there I am, rather serenely, upside down in the flames. They also seem to be burning all those Islamic books behind me on my shelves, which I think is probably the height of blasphemy. But in any case, obviously the jihadis, they would love to catch either one of us or both of us. But these guys, as long as they're working on their clever Photoshops, I figure they're probably not out on the street looking for me. This one I thought was interesting because the knife is in the wrong place. It needs to be closer to where, David? Where does it need to be closer to?
I'll go with neck if they're trying to be at all accurate.
That is correct. That would be Quranically accurate, but we are not getting Quran accuracy. They're not sending their best, in short. Not sending their best.
You know, though, I mean, you pointed out that, you know, if they're sitting around in front of a computer screen messing around with Photoshop, at least they're not actually out, you know, coming to kill you. But, you know, that's true. That's true for everyone, right? If they're sitting there making pictures of you, they're not out waging jihad against anyone. So you're actually in a weird indirect way protecting people from jihad, right? I mean, if the jihadi's like, I want to kill someone, let me just make a bunch of pictures of Robert Spencer. Okay, well, cool. Just do that then.
Well, there's the jihad of the pen, the jihad of the tongue, and so might as well. Those are a lot easier and not as messy.
The jihad of the Photoshop.
Yeah, and then this guy was admirably direct. Tufail Khan, and you can see he sent me this message in the direct messages on Twitter. He's got the Islamic grooming down pat, and that you should note that if you can see that the gentleman's very large beard but shaved upper lip is actually the result of a hadith. You remember this hadith, David?
Yeah, well, there's a bunch of passages on all this stuff. It's not just the mustache hairs. It's the armpit hairs and the pubic hairs. Muhammad had his followers on a schedule on a grooming schedule, not the kind of grooming that we normally hear about with Islam. The grooming gangs and stuff like that. But I mean, Muhammad was obsessed with his followers' grooming habits. Pluck this every such and such number of days, and this and that, and then you can go to sites like Islam Q&A. That's a fatwa site, and they actually have fatwas on questions like, hey, do I actually have to pluck them with tweezers like back then, or can I wax my pubic region as a way to do it faster? And they'll rule yes, that's plucking. It's just way faster if you're just waxing and so on. This is the kind of stuff that was important to Muhammad.
Indeed. Also, there's a particular hadith that I think this gentleman probably took to heart that says the Jews and Christians grow their mustaches and shave their beards. You must not be like them. You must shave your mustaches and grow your beards. And so it's yet another dig at the poor Jews and Christians who are always getting it in the hadith. All right, where should we go, David, after all those cheerful death threats? Why don't we go to Dumb Infidels? The ever popular Dumb, Stupid Infidels section of This Week in Jihad. As soon as I get it here. And here we go. This is... Oh, that's not it either. Oh, David, I'm sorry. Technology I'm mastering, but organization, that's another thing. Here we go. Okay. Now, first one comes out of India. A lot of stories out of India this week. And we have the All India Majlis Tamir-e-Millat, a big party put on by them with all sorts of Islamic spokesmen. And they also had a Hindu spokesman, Swami Lakshmi Shankaracharya. Swami Lakshmi Shankaracharya.
Perfect pronunciation, by the way.
Yeah. I might as well be from Calcutta. From the Hindu Muslim Yan Ekta Manch. Anyway, he, according to this story from Siyasat Daily, he surprised the audience with his knowledge of Islam and its last messenger, because this is a Hindu leader. Quoting Quran verses and hadiths, he described Islam as a religion of peace, love, and forbearance. The Prophet succeeded in spreading Islam not with the sword, but with his good character. I tried to say it with a straight face.
Yeah, well, what's funny is like I have entire books that say that. I mean, Maududi's towards understanding Islam. They used to hand that out on college campuses. They probably still do. Mm-hmm. But it's just page after page after page of Muhammad winning the unbelievers to him with his winsome personality and so on. And those who rejected him would have to cover their ears and run away screaming so that they don't hear the sound of the Quran. Because if they heard the sound of the Quran, they would convert. This is, this is being put forward as a historical book on Muhammad. When I mean, you could even read the Quran to see what nonsense that is, right? I mean, according to the Quran, Muhammad's delivering revelations, and they're making fun of him, going, "Come on, these are tales of the ancients. Come on, you got this stuff from that guy that you keep talking to. This is not
No,
new." And then,
no, he's foreign. He's a foreigner. Couldn't be.
yeah, Allah's explanation, but yeah, so now there you have there. So that Maududi, he was a Muslim scholar. So there you've got a guy who indisputably knows he's lying to win converts to Islam. He knows he's lying. But then you've got all these non-Muslim experts, and it's just weird that Islam is the only. Not just the only religion, Islam is the only topic in existence where the more you know about it, the less of an expert you are. And the less you know about it, the more of an expert you are. To the point where, as long as you're spouting complete nonsense that has no connection to what Islam actually teaches or to the actual history of Islam, you're propped up as a renowned authority.
Karen Armstrong.
That's how you get all these politicians and journalists and hey, look, you see? I mean, I had a debate recently, and it was just Nadir. I only jumped in there because AP asked me because they wanted to do a 2-on-2 and so on. But Nadir was actually quoting General David Petraeus and
Nadir Ahmed.
Yeah,
he's still at it.
He's quoting General Petraeus and Chuck Schumer and stuff, and we're sitting there we're sitting there quoting the Quran and Sahih al-Bukhari and stuff like that, and he's quoting Chuck Schumer and General Petraeus and so on. But yeah, that's the idea. It's again, the less you know about it, the less of a clue you have about what you're saying, the more you're propped up as an authority, and the more someone like you can dedicate your life to studying the history of jihad and exposing it, and you're the last one anyone should ever listen to.
Yep. I think that might be a new debating tactic that they've settled on, or Nadir is imitating the guy that I debated last fall, last year now. It's almost a year. He disappeared from the internet right after that. He was so secure in his victory. But in any case, he was arguing that this Harvard guy, Javad Hashmi, was arguing that U.S. foreign policy was a reflection of Christianity, and so he could criticize Christianity by criticizing U.S. foreign policy. So maybe Nadir saw that and thought, "Oh, hey, that's a good approach."
Sure is.
Yeah, that's right on topic. Anyway,
but if we point to jihadis screaming Allahu Akbar and quoting the Muslim sources, it has no connection to Islam.
Nothing to do with Islam. As a matter of fact, that's what they know in France, David. It's interesting that you would say that, because the next jihad story we've got this week is a Muslim stabbed 6 people on the street, 4 random people, and his mother and brother. Stabs them on the street in France. It's unclear why he stabbed his mother and brother, but there are abundant justifications for that sort of thing within Islam. Right after these stabbings, he took out a Quran and a prayer rug and stayed right there on the scene praying where he was apprehended. And the police now say that this incident was not linked to Islamist radicalization.
Of course not.
Of course not.
And if anyone, Robert mentioned numerous justifications, but just to get everyone going, Muhammad said in Sunan Ibn Majah, "Carry out Allah's punishments even against your own family members." So we don't know what the details are, but that's how people can justify honor killings and all sorts of other things they do against their own family members.
Indeed. As remember, Abraham, our common forefather, as the presidents of the United States like to say, the father of us all, Abraham, George Bush and Barack Obama and probably all the others have said all this. But
all these experts.
Yeah, experts on Islam. They have not apparently taken into account the fact that in the Quran itself, Abraham says to his unbelieving father, there will be enmity and hatred between us and you forever until you accept that there is no God but Allah.
Yep. For some reason, world-renowned Quran experts, George Bush and Barack Obama, never quote that passage.
Yeah, it's very strange. It's chapter 60. Mr. President, chapter 60, verse 4.
Yeah, and it's just a few verses before one of the most commonly quoted references that says, you're not forbidden from showing kindness to a non-Muslim. Surah 60, verse 8. Yeah. When you read it in context and so on, and then you, even if you go to the commentaries, you go to Tafsir Jalalain, he says Surah 60, verse 8 was abrogated by later commands to fight. So even if you interpret it as, hey, you can actually be kind to unbelievers, the official position would be that it's abrogated because you're commanded to fight them later. But then, just going to the passage that they say go to, just read the verses leading up to it, and it's, hey, there has to be hatred and enmity between Muslims and non-Muslims forever until they become Muslims.
Indeed. Okay, more stupid infidels in Jammu and Kashmir in India. A senior Hindu police officer, Hemant Kumar Lohia. I think I pronounced that one pretty well, actually, David. You got it. Anyway, Hemant Kumar Lohia. He was found dead at his home. He had a knife wound. Where do you think he had the knife wound, David?
If you say neck, I'm going to throw my laptop across this room.
Well, unfortunately, that is where he had it. So.
Darn. All right, I changed my mind.
He was found with his throat slit, and the suspect appears to be a young Muslim, his domestic help, who he hired 6 months ago. But the police have already determined that this has nothing to do with terrorism.
Yeah, and if they're in doubt, if there's any doubt from the authorities, just ask General Petraeus, Chuck Schumer. They'll set them all right.
Exactly. Because the world-renowned authority Nadir Ahmed, how could he not have this all figured out?
Is there something weird about this topic, man? It's like it makes the entire world insane. Like,
that's true.
This is not hard. You've got a book, collection of books, because they have the Quran and the Hadith and the Sirah and all this stuff, and you've got all these commands to violently subjugate the entire world. You got fight those who do not believe in Allah. You got Muhammad saying he's been commanded to fight people until they say there's no God but Allah and Muhammad is his messenger. You've got Muhammad saying that he's not only been commanded to fight unbelievers, but also hypocrites, so Muslims who aren't doing what they're supposed to. You have Muhammad saying that he's been made victorious with terror. And then you've got the people who are quoting these passages and carrying out exactly what the texts say. And then the entire world is saying, no, you're wrong about what you're saying. We've never read anything you're talking about. We've never read the Quran. We've never read the Hadith. We don't know what the Sirah is. We don't know what the Tafsir is. We don't know any of this stuff, but we know that you're wrong. And I mean, what it's just nuts, man. It's to the point where, we can't get violent, but it's like back in the day, these people would have just gotten slapped for being so stupid. And what there's like that is so idiotic. In one of those old movies, John Wayne would have just slapped the person in the face for saying something so stupid. And here we are. We just have to sit back and do shows and expose them. My goodness.
Indeed. And of course, this kind of willful ignorance has consequences, as the next stupid infidel story shows. The stupid infidels in this case did not say anything. They just acted. They brought over 124,000 unvetted migrants from Afghanistan. And so one of them, Shah Mahmoud Selab, was settled in Las Cruces, New Mexico, to start a new life, and was the beneficiary of a great deal of generosity from numerous Americans in that area. But He was just arrested and charged with a child sex crime and the violent assault of a 12-year-old boy there in Las Cruces. Now, David, I would suggest that this was entirely predictable. Would you not think so?
Absolutely no question whatsoever. You've got this, and I'm not familiar as much with Afghanistan, but I know people who are very familiar with Pakistani culture, and of course, in Afghanistan, you have the bakabazi, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have the dancing boys and so on. But I've heard that it's similar in Afghanistan in that they believe if it's a boy before he's reached puberty, you're not actually gay.
Mm-hmm.
You're not actually gay if the boy hasn't reached puberty. Once he hits puberty, then if you have sex with him, then you're gay and you're in trouble. But it's just culturally they have no problem with being attracted to boys, and it's just if you're a government and you're saying, hey, let's take thousands of these guys and a certain percentage of them view young boys in that way, guess what? Even if you bring in a bunch of people who are going to live totally normal lives, there's no question you're getting a percentage of child molesters in that bunch. And it's just like with the Pakistani gangs in the UK. I'm sure you got a bunch of Pakistani people who just went and lived normal lives and worked hard and so on. You also got a ton of people who think it's perfectly acceptable to go around raping, gang raping, drugging, and pimping young girls, as long as they're not Muslims. And it's just, it's a situation again where, you just want to like shake the leaders into what the heck is wrong with you? Like, how can this mantra you keep reciting in your head, like, completely overpower all of your senses, where you're getting all this information, all these statistics, all this data, all this proof right in front of your face, and all these court cases about what's going on, and it just never sinks in. It's almost like it's like that hadith where Muhammad told this guy how to deal with his stomach problems, and he comes back and says, my stomach still hurts, and Muhammad says, it's your stomach that's lying. And the guy's like, wait, what are you talking about, right? It's like, that's what these guys are like, right? It's like, no, there's nothing wrong with it. Wait, they're molesting all these. It's the data and the facts that are lying, not my ideology that's in my head.
Mm-hmm.
Weird stuff.
Indeed. All right, I have a whole section on Iran this week. I wanted to spend a little more time on Iran last week, but it all got away from us. The revolution is going on there. I think that's not an exaggeration to say. Whether or not it will succeed is another matter. We can all hope and pray that it will. The Islamic Republic is more threatened than it has been ever since it was established in 1979. There are a number of indications of the fact that the regime itself is deeply threatened. And that's where this week it's most interesting that a young woman named Nika Shakarami, who was 17 years old, she is one of the people who took off the hijab and was arrested by security forces and then died in their custody, like the woman who started off all these demonstrations, the Mahsa Amini, the 22-year-old woman who died in custody as well. Now, in both cases, the Islamic Republic official sources have put out the claim that these deaths were not the result of torture and abuse by their own forces. That rather, Mahsa Amini had a pre-existing undiagnosed heart condition and suddenly dropped dead in police custody, followed by Nika Shakarami accidentally falling off a roof during the demonstrations. Now, I thought this was very interesting, David, because this is a regime that is deeply unsure of itself when it's starting to make excuses and trying to claim that it is not as vicious and repressive as it really is. then it no longer has the confidence that it can win by being vicious and repressive. Otherwise, it would just kill these girls and make no apology or explanation.
And this is, I mean, this has a lot to do with social media nowadays, which is why the government is trying so hard to block internet access. The regime can claim all at once, oh no, we're not doing that. I mean, how much video footage do we have of what's going on in Iran? And they keep doing it, and people keep recording it and then finding ways to get it on the internet. But yeah, it's a situation where what are they going to do now, where they're trying to claim, oh, you know, we're here to get along with the entire world, we're not like that, and all the video footage is coming out. But at the same time, the only way for them to stop this attempted revolution is the violent crackdown. It's their only way of dealing with things. So the only way they have and know of dealing with problems, because it was Muhammad's only way of dealing with problems, just violence. Violence is the solution for everything. And they can't do that on the world stage now. And so they're just stuck. And that's why I'm liking the chances of, you know, of the people more than in the past. But my goodness, how courageous are some of these young women, right? I mean, they know what these guys will do to them if they get their hands on them, right? And they're still doing it anyway. And so you got these young women just literally laying their lives down, laying down their lives for future generations, so that future generations don't have to put up with this. And it's amazing. You go to the New York Times and they say this is a revolution, that it's about the economy and about you know, whatever, climate change. They'll just make up anything. It's about what was it? It was about the economy and the nuclear deal. That's why all these young women are rioting in the streets and pulling off their hijabs and so on. And
of course,
it's just amazing that you have actual. I mean, there aren't a lot of heroes in the world today, but you have some young women who are absolute fearless heroes, laying down their lives. And you know, and then you got the journalists reporting it's about the nuclear deal. That's why they're tearing off their hijabs and burning them and cutting their hair.
Meanwhile, the Ayatollah Khamenei tweeted just this morning, "These recent riots are not something spontaneous and coming from within. The onslaught of propaganda influencing people's thinking, provoking excitement, actions such as teaching how to make Molotov cocktails, etc., are clear examples of what the enemy is doing." David, who do you think he has in mind? Who's the enemy?
With him, it's always Jews and Americans, right?
That's it, man. But I think it's preposterous to think that the current administration would be making any mischief in Iran when they have tried so hard to come to an agreement with them.
I mean, who doesn't know how to make a Molotov cocktail, though?
Yeah, it's not like it's that hard.
No, I mean, I was about to just say, but I was worried about you get flagged for having instructions.
Yeah, I got a tweet taken down earlier today for gore because this poor boy, 14 years old in Nigeria, the jihadis came to his village and to cut off his hand. And so he's sitting there with his amputated arm. And, I mean, he's sitting there with his arm and the hand is amputated. And Twitter said it was too gory. But they never said that, incidentally, about the severed heads and the blood pouring down that I showed earlier from the jihadi death threat photoshops.
Yeah, and I bet if it were American police doing that to someone, then it would be fine to share as well.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, in Iran, a lot of exciting things are happening. The oil workers, and of course the Iranian economy depends to a tremendous degree upon the sale of oil. Oil workers at several places have said they are threatening now to destroy what they have built, which could cripple the Iranian economy, could really bring down the regime. 185 people have been killed so far, but they are not giving up, as you have noted. Extraordinary courage. And the regime's getting nervous. I saw a video yesterday. You can see it at Jihad Watch. Schoolgirls walking to school, and they've got the hijab on. They're wearing the thing. And the security forces are still shoving them and pushing them and hitting them. And I think, wait a minute, these girls are complying. Why are you brutalizing them? But it seems as if they're rattled. They see protesters everywhere. Meanwhile, our friend Yasser Qadi has weighed in, and Yasser is not happy. He gave a sermon a couple Fridays ago at the East Plano Islamic Center in Texas, and he likened the uprising in Iran to protests for public nudity. He said, "Would you think these protesters are doing something noble? Would you protest so that you could have public nudity in Texas?" And he go ahead.
I saw that clip, and it's interesting, the reasoning, right? It's so here in Iran, they're going around brutalizing and even murdering women and girls who refuse to wear an Islamic head covering. And he says, if you have a problem with the state enforcing that, then you should have a problem with the state enforcing any sort of rules, like, just saying, hey, you can't walk around naked. Or he even said, in some countries where they allow public nudity, maybe they don't allow sex in public. But notice the reasoning here. If you allow any rule about this, then you have to allow the Islamic rule and not complain about it. And that's just insane. We can all agree on here are the rules and think that one's a bad idea, right? Yeah.
Also, it's a question of what would be a proportionate punishment. If somebody's walking around naked in Texas, then this person should be arrested, should be prevented from doing this, but executed? No. But Yasser apparently doesn't have any problem with that. Anyway, we have...
And by the way, notice you pointed out what would be an appropriate penalty, something like that. It would, for not wearing a hijab, something reasonable. So even granting a society that's Islamic and has rules and laws and so on, if it were, hey, we're going to fine you $20 or something like that for not wearing this, that would not be generating the same sort of uproar. But I mean, my goodness, they're brutalizing people to the point where even people who affirm the hijab should be outraged, saying, hey, I believe in wearing the hijab, but you guys should not be acting like this.
Indeed. Okay, we have quite a lot of violent jihad this week, unfortunately. And
impossible.
I know it's hard to imagine that any Muslims would misunderstand Islam to this extent. But Burkina Faso, Muslims attacked a military convoy. The group Jamaat Nusrat al-Islam wal Muslimin, which is apparently better armed and better equipped than the Burkina Faso military. I'm sure that the Burkina Faso military is not a great powerhouse, but it's noteworthy that the jihadis in this region of Central and West Africa, they seem to have no obstacles to their spread. And the Nigerian government, which is where it all started in Nigeria, in that area, it never moves against them, or it doesn't do anything effective. And many people have said that it's very clear the Nigerian government is on their side, but then they act with impunity also in Burkina Faso, Cameroon, Niger, other places in that area. And you gotta wonder, how is it that these jihad groups are better equipped than the national militaries? And who is funding them? I think the answer to that, I don't know in particular, but I suspect that it has to do with wealthy Muslims who believe in the Islamic teachings about jihad. And so they support these groups. But nobody seems to want to investigate that.
No, I mean, you're in a lot of places, and there are a lot of there are a lot of towns where, I mean, there are people who struggle to find food, and yet you're sitting there with AK-47s.
Hmm.
You didn't get your money and go buy that. People are giving you these weapons because they want you to fight jihad for them, and they view their jihad as funding other people. Because Muhammad even said that. He said, he who funds a jihadi gets the same reward as the jihadi. So you sit there, you're wealthy, and you're a wealthy politician or businessman, and you're funding the jihad. You're getting the same rewards as all the people who are actually going out slaughtering unbelievers in the name of Allah.
Hmm. All right, over to India. A Muslim named Oz, Aas, Oz Muhammad. He identified himself as a Hindu and dressed as a Hindu, and he entered a Hindu temple in Uttar Pradesh state in India. He was armed with pistols, knives, and other sharp weapons. That's how the news story describes it. So it seems like he was armed to the teeth, entering this Hindu temple disguised as a Hindu. And he explained when he was discovered that he had intended to kill one of the Hindu leaders in the temple. But considering that he had so many weapons, it's likely that he also had other victims in mind. And of course, Muhammad allowed for this kind of deception, did he not?
Oh yeah, this is exactly what he. I mean, very. I mean, you see this in a bunch of. I'm sure you're thinking of the passage with Cobb, right? Like,
Yeah.
let's pretend to be friendly and so on.
Oh,
But I
I
mean,
love
even
your
to
cologne.
yeah, even Takia, you're allowed to pretend to be a non-Muslim if you need to.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's an interesting point you have made there, and I think that some interesting information is going to come out about some people. It'll surprise some people eventually. But anyway, not to be.
Muhammad himself said, "War is deceit."
Indeed, exactly. Let's see. Do I have more deceit? I'm not seeing it right off, so we'll just go to the more violent jihad. Oh, here's a little bit of war is deceit. There's been an interesting phenomenon also in India, a festival dedicated to the Hindu god Ganesh, and it involves dances called the Garba, that is a part of the worship of the Hindu god in this context. And there have been persistent incidents of Muslims trying to enter the dance. And I have a writer from India who writes at Jihad Watch who asked, you're talking about Muslims who don't even tolerate Hindu processions going past mosques on the street. And now they're suddenly trying to get into Hindu worship festivals. What do you think might be the objective, David?
I would guess slaughtering them in the name of Allah.
There's
Yeah,
an
that's what
alternative.
I'm.
There's another possibility. What do you think?
Okay. Why they're
Who's at
trying
a
to sneak in?
dance?
Hmm?
Who's at a dance?
Oh, you're going in there trying to. You're talking about love jihad, trying to
Indeed.
pick up some ladies. See, you don't believe in dance, you don't believe in the music, but you believe in jihad. So you go in there, you do a little dancing, and if you manage to get a Hindu girl to come out and marry you, take over the reproductive capabilities of the enemy, and start cranking out some jihadi babies, you're obviously going to be forgiven for the dancing.
Exactly. That's a lot like the 9/11 hijackers going to strip clubs and getting drunk and all that, and people say, "See, they weren't real Muslims." But they don't realize that once they do this grand act of jihad, it outweighs all their sins. So they have kind of a free pass to sin the night before when they know that they're going to do this.
And this is actually relevant in two ways, because you and I have seen this for a long time. Whenever there's, jihadis go kill people in a church or something like that in France, they say, this person was clubbing, years earlier and so on. But you basically have two patterns. You have the people who decide that they're going to wage jihad, and then, okay, I'm going to wage jihad on Monday. So, I can do whatever I want Friday and Saturday beforehand because I'm going to be forgiven for my jihad. But then you also have people who have grown up and they've been drinking and partying their entire lives, and then they, let's say in their mid 20s, late 20s, they get serious about Islam, and all you've got is this the scales, so that if you die, Allah's going to put all your good deeds and bad deeds on the scales, and they have no idea what's going to happen to them because you have no assurance of salvation in Islam. Even Muhammad himself said, I have no idea what Allah will do to me when I die. And so then the jihad recruiter tells, there's a way you can be sure. There's a way you can be sure. You've spent your entire life not living for Islam, and now you're nervous because you're taking it seriously. Guess what? Go wage jihad. And so they go and wage jihad specifically because they've decided to take their religion seriously. And then all the media and politicians come out afterwards and say, this person wasn't a serious Muslim. Look at this picture of him at the club 5 years ago.
Exactly. And so it ends up running interference for the very same jihad, because it allows for the deception and the continued ignorance and complacency of the infidels. 24 men arrested in the UK for raping a single teen girl between the ages of 13 and 15. Some of their names have been released. Their names are, you ready?
How many Muhammads are there?
Two out
Shocker.
of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 names released. We have 2 Muhammads, 1 Khalid, 1 Omar,
right.
1 Jamil, and Brian.
Brian?
I suspect Brian's a convert.
Yeah, Brian converted.
They put his name in there to once again run interference for jihadis and cover up what this is really all about.
Yeah, I talked about that a long time. I mean, I come from a pretty messed up family. Lots of drugs, lots of violence, and so on. If I went to my brothers and said, hey, let's go rape this girl, I'm going to get punched in the face by one of my brothers. And yet, when they were to release the names for these grooming gangs and so on, it would be like fathers and sons. Mm-hmm. It'd be like 3 brothers, cousins. It's a family affair. It's like, hey guys, what's the Ahmed family gonna do? And hey, let's go gang rape that 12-year-old girl. And it's like, and it never occurs to anyone to stand up and say, hey guys, isn't this wrong? Never crosses their minds.
Not only is it not wrong, it's meritorious. And I have a number of examples of that. A survivor of another Muslim rape gang said that her rapists would quote the Quran to her, and they believed that their actions were justified in Islam, that Allah would bless them for acting this way. In France, Muslim migrants raped a girl and videoed the rape, and in the video you can hear them praising Allah and invoking the Quran during the rape. In India, a rapist gave the Quran and a prayer rug to a woman that he was holding captive and repeatedly raping. Another victim of an Islamic State jihadi said, he told me that according to Islam, he is allowed to rape an unbeliever. He said that by raping me, he is drawing closer to Allah. He said that raping me is his prayer to Allah. Now, where on earth, he must be misunderstanding Islam, right, David?
Not if you actually read the sources. I mean, if that's what Allah says you do with your female captives, then and there were ample opportunities. I mean, when they captured the men with their wives, and the Muslims were reluctant to rape the captives because they thought, wait a minute, isn't this adultery if we captured them and their husbands? And then they actually go to Muhammad. So they weren't simply pouncing on these women. They're like, hey, we want to find out if this is cool with Allah. And yeah, of course. Of course Indeed. It was. Surah 4 verse 24, and read the associated hadiths.
Indeed. And so we have many instances actually of this kind of thing. In India also, a Hindu girl studying at Aligarh Muslim University in Uttar Pradesh also was beaten by a Muslim student who was forcing her to wear hijab. And her brother came on the scene and stuck up for his sister, whereupon he beat the brother and forced him to say, "Long live Pakistan." So, once again, I think this was an incident where he was trying to get the girl to convert to Islam, because, of course, a Muslim can't marry a Hindu woman. In India also, yes.
And by the way, so I mean, those here who've studied Islam, you pointed out they can't marry a Hindu woman, but they can marry a Jewish or Christian woman. And it's just interesting because I over the years I've seen that repeatedly brought up to show that Islam is tolerant. It'll be pointed out, a Muslim can even marry a non-Muslim. You're like, wait a minute.
A non-Muslim woman can't marry a Muslim woman can't marry a non-Muslim man of any kind.
Yeah, you're right. Because so in Islamic thinking, it's the Jews and Christians are close enough where you can take over their reproductive capabilities, and other people have to convert because you have to be sure. You have to be sure that they're not going to, they're not going to be bringing Hindu idols and stuff in there. But yep.
So more war is deceit action combined with love jihad. In another incident out of India, a Muslim named Arif pretended to be a Hindu, and he befriended a woman. Then they got to be friends. He raped her. He videotaped the rape, and he threatened her that he would release the videos if she would not convert to Islam and marry him.
And that was happening. I'm actually glad that I haven't been hearing about that as much as, I don't remember 7 or 8 years ago. There were lots of stories like that. It was a big issue with Sikh girls in the UK, where a Muslim would seduce a Sikh girl, but then he'd be recording it, and then, hey, now you're my prostitute, or now you have to do this with me all the time, or I'll send this video to your family. It got to the point where Sikh leaders had to come out and say, guys, in our community, we need to get to the point where if this happens to a girl, she can come to us and we're not going to judge her and condemn her, because it would be the only way to stop this from happening, and so on. So, I mean, they had to actually change their cultural thinking on this issue to prevent ongoing gang rapes and prostitutions at the hand of Islam.
Yep. Another one I want to make sure we get to before we go. I've got a little bit of time left anyway, but I wanted to make sure to discuss the incident out of Israel and the Palestinian Authority, Ahmed Hakam Hamdi Abu Marakia. And he was a gay Palestinian who sought asylum in Israel and was living peacefully in Israel until he was kidnapped and taken into the West Bank, into Judea and Samaria, into the city of Hebron, where he was beheaded, and then his body paraded through the streets. Why on earth do you think they would not only behead him, but parade the body through the streets?
I'm trying to think of a specific... Are you thinking of a specific passage? Or are you just thinking in general of exposing him?
Yeah, in general. I think it's a deterrent myself.
Mm-hmm.
But,
I don't want to... Not for that. I recall from adultery doing something through... Man, yeah, I don't want to... Yeah, I don't want to. I'd have to look up what I'm thinking about. But
Okay.
yeah. Well, I mean, the real issue there is this alliance between like political left in various countries and Islam, and we point out, hey,
Yeah.
you guys, what you say you believe about women's rights and uh, gay rights, LGBTQ issues, and so on, it's diametrically opposed to the people you are championing and saying we're not allowed to criticize at all in any way, no matter what they do. And we've seen it start to break down when
Hmm.
they wanted to teach LGBTQ stuff in schools to Muslim students, and then suddenly, no, you're not, no, you're not. Then you start getting protests and so on. But really, I mean, if that were anyone else in the world, if it were anyone else, if it were any other group killing a gay person and parading the body through the streets, it would be every news program's main story for the next 3 months. And it would
Right.
be it would be proof that whatever the ideology that produced this is public enemy number one for the entire world. We all have to come together and oppose this ideology for some reason, because if it's Islamic, the entire world just goes, what? We're not paying attention.
That's right. And whenever I have a story like this at Jihad Watch, I put up a picture of somebody holding up one of those signs, Queers Against Islamophobia, which I have seen in person speaking on university campuses. I don't understand why these people think that. Well, I remember actually the University of Buffalo. I had Reliance of the Traveler with me, a Sharia manual endorsed by Al Azhar as being a reliable guide to Sunni Islam, and I'm reading out about how homosexuals ought to be executed, and they're all booing as if I wrote it, you know?
Yeah.
Uh,
Shame on
and
you.
and yet, when the Palestinian Authority they act on this, I wonder where are the Queers Against Islamophobia people, and what do they think about this? But they never, of course, are challenged in the media in the West. In Afghanistan, 4 people killed and 20 injured when a mosque was bombed in Kabul. And that must have been Islamophobes, right, David? Nobody else would do that.
It's got to be. There's no other possibility in the universe.
Actually, just in case people are taking you seriously, there are no Islamophobes in Afghanistan. Actually, there are probably plenty of secret ones, but the only people that would have bombed a mosque in Afghanistan would be Muslims of another sect or another group who believed that the people in that mosque were heretics and thus worthy to be killed.
And by the way, this is only slightly related, but you think about Sheikh Yasser Qadi, and hey, wait a minute, what do you care about Iran? Aren't these your mortal enemies? What do you care about what happens there? But places like Afghanistan and the entire Muslim world are looking to that, right? In the places where the population is terrified into submitting to what the leaders say, they're all watching Iran, and it's, wait a minute, if they can overthrow these guys, then maybe we can. So every place, even the Sunni places, have to be pretty worried about what's going on in Iran here.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Very exciting times, David.
Very. I mean,
Very.
can you imagine if we get to see the collapse of Iran?
I would die happy, my
My
friend.
goodness, my
Oh yeah.
goodness. I don't need to see anything after that.
That's it. That's right. And
We're
anything
we're
that went wrong
we're
after
retiring.
that.
We're retiring. We're retiring. If Iran falls, David Wood and Robert Spencer are retiring. We're gonna go. We're gonna go to a Caribbean island and sip pina coladas down there.
Hey, that actually sounds great. Um,
Hey, we should do it. We should do it, even if it's just for a day. We'll be sitting there with pina colada just for some pictures to share on the internet. Say,
Okay.
hey, the Republic of Iran collapsed, and then just us,
you got a deal.
us,
You got a deal.
us sipping on pina coladas.
Like at the end of Trading Places.
Yeah, yeah. Looking good, Billy Ray.
Feeling good, David Wood. All right. Getting off track here.
That's all right.
Yes, sir. terrible stories and then all this hilarity. Pakistan, a Hindu. A lot of stories out of India and Pakistan this week, and a Hindu laborer, a woman in Pakistan, she went to ask her Muslim boss for her salary, and he thought the request was impertinent. So he hoisted her upside down, beat her, and then she was gang raped. Now, the gang rape is a particular form of punishment for women in the Islamic world, very common in Iran, because it's, I think, probably of the belief that's more prevalent among Shiites than Sunnis, that a woman who's been raped, of course, it's always her fault, because she's supposed to be preventing men from being tempted by wearing hijab or niqab or even the whole full burqa. And if she doesn't prevent the temptation, then the onus is on her. So a woman who's been raped is going to go to hell. And so they rape the captives in Iranian prisons to ensure that they are going to hell. And the gang rape here, yes.
Oh no, I've seen that for years. That they won't execute a woman unless they've raped her first. So if you're a woman, and they're going to kill you, execute you, then they'll rape you first.
Yeah, and so the gang rape in this case may have to do with that, but also, of course, it's a means of humiliation and of expressing dominance. And that's another thing about Islam. It's always about dominance and submission. That the word means submission, and it's not just submission to Allah, but submission of the woman to the man, submission of the non-Muslim to the Muslim. All kinds of submission everywhere. All right, let's see what we've got in the final few minutes here. I know there are quite a few. Now they are harder to find amid all the ones we have already discussed. Oh, yes. Several out of Africa, David. In Nigeria, 2 Christians were murdered. Of course, this is practically a daily story. And one of the Christian leaders in that country said, and I think he's right, this is a strategy of wiping the entire Christian population from our land. And when we think about the lands that we call the Islamic world nowadays, those were all Christian lands, and they were subjected to the same kind of treatment.
And by the way, look, total side note for those of you who are watching, because people ask me, what they should do on YouTube. Guys, it is wide open. If someone wanted to make a YouTube channel just focusing on jihad in Africa. You could even focus on a specific country because it's so constant, it's so endless. There's plenty of material, but
that's correct.
You could do that to keep the world informed. Because here, we do This Week in Jihad, and there are always stories, but there's never time to go through all of them or to go into detail. So that's it's something that needs to be done.
Another one out of Uganda, a woman, Muslim woman, and she was having stomach pains. You mentioned stomach pains earlier. This is a parallel story then. Woman in Uganda has stomach pains, Muslim woman. She goes to a Christian event, and people pray for her there, and her stomach pain goes away. And nobody says, it's your stomach's fault. And she is then, she informs the imam that she has decided to become a Christian. And a group of Muslims come with him the next day, the imam and 6 other Muslims. And they start to destroy her house. They kill her sheep. They destroy her crops. They beat her with sticks and kick and slap her. And I think they must be moderates, right, David? Because they didn't kill her.
Yep, you could view it that way.
Because the death penalty is indeed one that is prescribed for leaving Islam. Nigeria, we have that story that got chopped off Twitter that this fellow, 14 years old, Tersu Uhanga, had his hand cut off by Islamic jihadis. Oh, now, why would they do that, David?
Because Allah commands it.
Well, if he stole something, yes, but what if he seems to have been just standing around? But he's standing around not being a Muslim.
Well, I mean, you have Surah 5, verse 33 of the Quran, which talks about chopping off hands and feet and so on as one of the many punishments,
Yeah.
crucifixion and so on, for the vague crime of corruption in the land, which, according to Ibn Kathir, includes even unbelief.
So there you go. Or maybe they were just trying to strike terror into the hearts of the enemies of Allah. Anyway, as you noted, David, there are quite a few more stories to go, but we are out of time for this week. I think, unfortunately, there is likely to be more jihad next week, and we will likely be back right here in this space.
One second. Yes, I think we will be back. I just wanted to point out that after this, I'm going live on Tony Costa's channel talking about the collapse of Islam. So I shared the link over there in the...
Be sure to catch that, ladies and gentlemen. Tony Costa and David Wood, two giants on the scene today challenging Islam. And this has been This Week in Jihad for the week of October 5 to 12, 2022. I am Robert Spencer. Over here is the great David Wood. And we thank you all for being here. Be safe all this week. And join us next week. God bless.